So for organizations that are just beginning their journey, what is the first step they should take to start their data discovery and classification program? And
Yeah.
how they can ensure that this initiative has a minimal impact on their day-to-day business operations. So over to you,
Correct.
Ashish.
Yeah. So, I mean, data discovery and classification is obviously the foundation piece, but I think there is a mandate from the DPDP Act itself that any organization who, whatever scale, whatever business they are in, they would have to do a assessment where they stand in the privacy implementation, right? So they would have to do a data privacy impact assessment, and that will help them understand kitne pani mein hai. I mean, how deep or how shallow we are standing, and how complex thing that we have to go ahead and implement. Because
Right.
that's what I was telling, that earlier data security was looked at from a holistic policy driven purpose. But now with DPDP coming in, it is just not a policy driven, but a very strategic business level at the level of the board, where
Yes.
the
Yes.
board is to be convinced that we are doing business in compliance with the DPDP, and in that compliance journey, are we at level -1, level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? So what level of maturity we are? You remember in
Yeah.
the initial days when India started IT journey and IT boom started, any company who was given outsourced work to India from US was to be assessed
Hmm.
as CMM level, right? What level of software development maturity you are. So similar case, this DPIA will tell you, though there are no defined maturity levels, basically organizations who have to start a privacy assessment would need to figure out where and how the, the customer personal data is getting collected, in which IT systems, in which applications, in which storage they are being captured. So they have to initiate some kind of a cross-functional workshop and take inputs. Then they will understand the different business processes that is being executed in their organization, and in which of those scenarios what kind of data and what kind of sensitive data, and who in the stakeholders within the organization are accessing that. So they have to map the data flow along the entire data life cycle within the organization
Yes.
and outside the organization, right?
Yeah.
Then they will understand the different points of collection, and whether in at those point of collection there is a consent and a notice getting collected, so that
Correct.
the customers agreement and alignment is there with respect to what data they are sharing. And then it is a journey through which they will carry this exercise across all their business functions, departments, their different units, and then summarize all of that into a set of very graded list of high, medium, low kind of risk,
Assessment.
privacy risk, which
Yeah.
will then give them a heat map to understand which are the highest risky areas, which are the highest risky business processes, the highest risky data stores, the highest risky set of users, and their third party ecosystem, and what kind of risk they have, and what kind of controls and remediation have to be enforced. So it will give a holistic gap assessment report, and based on the gap assessment report, the board and the executive team will possibly kickstart a privacy implementation, right? And the first step of the privacy implementation would also be implementing a data discovery and classification.
Yeah, that was really very descriptive and very, comprehensive. Thank you so much, Ashish. And thank you so much, Harsh, for sharing your valuable insights with us today. So, before we close, I would just like to summarize some few takeaways from today's discussion. So, first thing is that you cannot protect your data if you don't know where it exists. That is the first thing. You need to know where it is. The data discovery is the first step. It is towards the privacy, security, or regulatory compliance. Third is that DPDP compliance starts with understanding and locating personal data across the organization. Further that, data lineage and business process mapping. It helps organization to understand not just where the data resides, but why it exists and how it supports the business operation. Then fifth one is accurate classification is critical to reduce risk and making informed security decisions. As organizations adopt GenAI, data discovery and classification becomes essential guardrails for responsible AI usage. And the last one is that the best way to begin is through a phased and a risk-based approach focused on the organization's most critical and sensitive data.